Be ready, guys. 5 seconds. Start. Mr. Vice Chairman, I accept the principle of the separation of the railway finance from the general finance. I also accept the desirability of this arrangement. It is not only a convenient arrangement but it is based on sound principles and is conducive to the better administration of the railways. I also agree that the contribution of the railways to the general revenues should be in the shape of fixed dividends, but I cannot agree that the dividend should be fixed at 4%, and that is the crux of the whole report. As a matter of fact, the committee was instituted only to go into that matter, whether the dividend payable at the present time, that is 4%, was reasonable or not, and whether this arrangement should continue. When I say that I do not agree to the rate of dividend, I wish to submit that enough material has not been placed in our hands to judge whether the dividend which is being fixed is fixed on some sound basis or not. The committee has not examined certain vital matters concerning the administration of the railways, and what I find is that the whole arrangement is very superficial. It appears to me that the railway administration and the finance administration came to an agreement, and the committee did not find it necessary because of the agreement between the two ministries to examine and go into the vital matters which affect this issue. It is not clear how this dividend, if fixed at 4%, is going to react on the working of the railways, and particularly on the future development of the railways and also on the present structure of the fares and freights. This question has not at all been examined, and we do not know what reaction it is likely to have. These are very vital matters, and I think that they need a thorough examination before we can come to correct conclusion in this matter. As we know, there is a pressing demand for reduction in the railway fares, particularly for third class passengers. This demand has been made on the floor of this house, and I think there is great justification behind this demand, and more particularly now when we find that the prices of agricultural goods have gone down, we will have to take into consideration the question whether the rural population, who will get much lesser return for their products now, will be able to pay the same fares and freights. I also wish to draw your attention to the fact that the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce had submitted a memorandum to the Honorable the Railway Minister asking him for an examination and revision of the freight structure. I do not know what the position today is, and unless and until we are enlightened about that, unless and until we know where we stand in relation to freights and fares, we are not in a position to take any decision whether the rate of dividend should be 4% or not. I should like to ask the Honorable the Railway Minister whether, in view of this strong demand made by the people through their representatives in both the Houses of Parliament, and in view of the changing economy with which we are faced, he can give us an assurance that he will be able to discharge his obligations and responsibilities and commitments, that he will be able to pay a dividend of 4%, and yet he will be able to reduce the freight and fare rates. That is the basic thing. Another important factor which has to be taken into consideration is the development schemes. I wish to submit that there is no new approach in this matter. I find that we are going about in this matter in the same frigid manner, and the aspirations of the people have not at all been taken into consideration. The Honorable Railway Minister will remember that during the budget speeches made on the floor of this house as well as in the other house, there have been incessant demands for the development of the railways. I do not know what he thinks about it, and how he thinks that after paying this dividend at 4%, he will be able to meet that demand, and he will be able to find a way for the railways to expand their economy as they think it proper, as would meet the demands and aspirations of the people. In this connection, I wish to invite your particular attention to the facts. I will be happy if you could pay even a larger percentage, but the fact is that we must be sure that the railways are in the present circumstances in a position to do so and yet discharge their responsibilities and obligations and satisfy the needs and demands of the people, which are legitimate and justified. Now when we fix the dividend at 4%, what happens is that we also fix that of those projects which are to be considered as remunerative at 5% because the railways want a margin of 1%. What actually happens is that when we fix it at such a high level, because of this percentage, we find that not many new projects are really taken up, and we have been very seriously disappointed in this matter. I therefore think that in the present circumstances, the railways cannot afford to pay a dividend of 4%. May I ask the railway minister whether it is not a fact that even he has not been able to contribute fully, or even he will fall short by about rupees 60 crores in his contribution towards the plan. Out of the rupees 400 crores that the railways have to contribute, I find from his speech that they are faced with a net shortfall of about rupees 62 crores. This question, sir, in my humble opinion, should be viewed from a different angle from which it was looked at and discussed here yesterday. It is true that it is correct in principle that the railways, whose entire capital at charge is drawn from the general revenues, should be able to make a good contribution to the general revenues, but in applying this principle, care must be exercised. If we are looking at railway systems in advanced countries like the United Kingdom or the United States of America or any such country, this principle no doubt could be applied on all fours. But in a country like India, whether it could be applied is a question that should be considered. It was argued that the railways have a long history, and because they have long been an established concern, they should now be able to contribute to the general revenues. Although it is true that the railways are a long established concern, still the circumstances under which the railways were run are not being examined here. The railways, as we all know, before independence, were run not on a welfare state basis, but they were run on the system of strategic lines. When the railway lines in India were formed, it was not the question of developing economic resources, it was not the question of linking up industrial centers, it was not the question of linking up the railway system with pilgrim centers or centers of density that prompted the authorities, the private companies, to start the railways in India, but it was the strategic concern of the British government then that prompted these companies to form railways. The question of arriving at a correct pattern of railway system from the point of view of developing and exploiting the natural resources of the country from the point of view of developing the backward areas of the country is still there to be examined and to the attended to. Well, from this point of view, as anybody can see, there is much scope for developing the railways.